Finch here with one more roster breakdown. Can you tell we filmed it all on the same day? Or maybe this is just 3 different days where I wore the same shirt. Either way, the roster breakdowns are going to be just as good. I'm going to talk about Team Dignitas this time. A team that I kind of just realized when I started going through these videos and doing some research that I've been sleeping on pretty heavily. This team is scary good and could easily be top 2 going into next year. They're basically that same core from Dignitas that you know and love, right? Trix tank is still going to be there. Qvo, Fred, and Variety are all there. There's just these 2 new pieces of Ataraxia and Hurriwind that are joining the squad. As long as those pieces show up, I mean, Dignitas is going to be tough to beat. I'll go through all the roles just like normal. We'll start over in the duo lane with Ataraxia. I mean, how much do we have to talk about how great this guy is? One of our oldest names in all of Smite. I mean, I still remember like old Titan days, right? And that big comeback way back in season 1. I love my man. He's always great to talk to. He has a great mind for the game. And I think recently he's stepped up his brawn to sort of match the brain. In game, he's been willing to be more aggressive lately to the betterment of his teams. Obey in season 5 really started to turn it on when they worked through Prime a little bit more, and Ataraxia was right there with them, willing to work through that strategy. He can do the same type of things here that I think Dignitas is gonna be scary. And it shouldn't be that tough, right? He's gonna have Trix tank here with him in lane, who I think has maybe kind of lost some of his identity, at least during this Dignitas run. There's been some talk he's had to pull back a little bit and play through zeros a lot on Dignitas. Well, he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. We can get old, aggressive Trix tank back now with Ataraxia to back him up in the duo lane. And we saw what duo lane aggression can do for you. Splice won the world championship largely on the back of that with a Roar and Cyclone spin. So maybe Dignitas can get a little bit of that going for themselves to help them out in season 6. Now the question mark for this team comes from the middle lane. That's where Hurriwind's at. And I feel bad because this is my second time saying a new or an NA mid laner might be a worry for a team, but that's just kind of the case. A lot of pro players are really high on Hurriwind. They say he's better than maybe some of the results that we've seen from him, and I'm inclined to believe him. I just have to be a little bit questionable until I actually see it in action. But Hurriwind is also an old school name that can certainly turn up the heat. I'm thinking of some old big Agni plays from my man, even going back as far as season 1. So certainly he can perform strong for this Dignitas roster, but that's the question mark, right? I know there's less elite mid laners out there, but Zeros is still out there. Paul and Malswell are still out there. If those guys repeatedly beat him down, that could potentially be a problem for this squad. Then you move over into the jungle where Qvo Fred hangs out. It feels like this is our perpetual second best player in the world, and I almost feel bad about it because he keep comparing him to adapting so much. But this guy is an absolute nut. I don't know what more I could say about how good Qvo Fred is that has not already been said. We already know how strong he is. He single-handedly sometimes wills Dignitas into victories even when they fall behind early. He'll keep them into games later and later by stalling out the enemy, and then sometimes he'll just win games for you. So Qvo Fred, obviously excellent, an MVP caliber player for this team, the kind of guy you build teams around. What more need to be said? Then we go over to Variety, who's in and out, I feel like, of the elite solo lane conversation, but probably deserves to be more in than out. Variety is another kind of guy that you build teams around. They literally did when they came into with this new Dignitas roster when it was first formed. It was Variety's new team, I believe, when they initially started, so it makes sense. That's how strong this guy is in the solo lane. Solo lane is another role, though, where I think it's a really deep pool. He's got to be careful. A lot of good solo laners out there like Benji, Deathwalk, or even just touched a bit on Belair. As long as he can hang with those guys, I'm not worried about him at all. Expect for this team to have the totem of Qvo a lot as well because he loves to play aggressive and should be able to get that over there in the solo lane all the time. So if those pieces line up the way we expect them to, and Hurriwind can play in the mid lane the way that the other pros expect him to, I'm not worried about Dignitas at all. I see top 2 for this roster. And if you want to see more roster breakdowns, make sure you keep tuning back in. And I know that you're going to want to see these teams in action in the SPL. Watch them, mixer.com/SmiteGame. You don't want to miss a minute. Get right back here.